Okay, hello. I am Thebpg13, also known as Viper, and welcome to Colin McRae Rally. We'll get into the run in just a second, but before we do that, I have my lovely host with me, Spectral. And Spectral, would you be able to tell me what car won, please?
Hello and good morning, everyone. Yes, if you just give me 2 seconds, I'm just loading up the list now.
It was a pick between 4 cars, I believe. Oh, just to give a quick perspective, so there's 4 cars we can use: Renault Maxi Megane, the Seat Ibiza, the Golf, VW Golf, and Skoda Felicia. Those are the 4 cars for the Novice Championship. Again, I'll explain a bit more about that as we go. I think last time I checked it was the Seat. Not sure, you found it?
Just loading up, mate. Sorry, site's giving me a little bit of trouble.
I think Seat was the last one I checked. Also, because this is running in a window, there is a few graphical glitches in the menu, but don't worry, that's not going to stop us from actually doing the game. So the cars will look a bit weird, they'll look like something out of an inverted nightmare. But
did you say one of the cars was a Renault?
There was a Renault, a Seat, a Volkswagen, or VW, and a Skoda.
Ah, great then. So I can announce that the Renault is the car that won for this race.
Did it? Blimey. Okay. Well, Renault it is. Okay, so I will give the guys at UKSG, I'll give you guys a countdown, and then we will go. So time will start as soon as click A. So we're going to count down from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, good stuff. Nice to use the Renault. So, to give a bit of explanation for this game. So, I think a fair few people know what this game is or have seen it before, but if you haven't, this is Colin McRae Rally 1, released back in 1998 on PlayStation 1 and on the PC. And about 3 years later, it got a Game Boy Color port. This is the PC version, as you can see, running at a lovely crisp 25 FPS. And I should probably, it's obviously worth noting a few things from the get-go. So there is 6 countries that we've got to drive through, and they are New Zealand, Greece, Monte Carlo, or Austria, depending on which version of the game you play, Australia, Sweden, and Corsica. Now there's 3 difficulty levels in this game. There's Novice, Intermediate, and Expert. Novice has you doing 3 stages with the 2-wheel drive cars. So that's the Renault Megane, as I said before, the Seat Ibiza kit car, Volkswagen Golf GTI kit car, I think that was the Mark III, and the Skoda Felicia kit car. So the intermediate and the expert levels involve you doing 6 stages on 8 rallies, and they include Indonesia and the UK. Obviously on intermediate it's the 4-wheel drive cars, so you've got the Subaru Impreza, the Mitsubishi Lancer Evo 4, the Ford Escort WRC, and the Toyota Corolla WRC. And then, depending on what rallies you win in the intermediate, will depend on what bonus cars you unlock. So, on the expert difficulty, any car can be used. However, it's more a case of, it's more a case of you can use any car that you like, so the 2-wheel drive, the 4-wheel drive, and the bonus. And the bonus cars in this game being the Ford Escort Mark II, I believe, the Lancia Delta Integrale, the Ford RS200, and the Audi Quattro, with the Audi Quattro and the Ford RS200 being the fastest cars there is, that you can use. And obviously on expert difficulty, it makes it a lot more difficult. But it is what it is. Also, at the end of every stage, we're going to get asked if we want to save, and we're just going to click no and get straight into the next stage. So we are going to do a few tweaks to the car setup as we go through some of these stages. Some of them will just stay the same. So in New Zealand, what we do is we do the first 2 stages, we don't touch any of the setup. And then in the third stage, we're going to change our tyres from dry grooves to wet grooves because stage 3 is a wet stage with plenty of mud and plenty of rain. In Greece, we just changed the gearbox to good acceleration. In Monte Carlo, it's the same thing. Australia, you don't even touch the setup there. And then in Sweden, you change it from max acceleration to good acceleration on stage 2. And then...
sorry, Viper, could I just interrupt for 1 second? It seems that I've made a mistake on which car actually won. Is it possible to change the car or restart?
I mean, you're about 3.5 minutes, and I could change it, but it's about 3.5 minutes of the run gone. Probably wouldn't be possible.
We would rather that the viewers who bidded and won, get the right car in.
Okay, that's fine, yeah. I don't mind if we want. We can restart if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Also, good job, my timer resets. Okay, so what was the car that got it? Seat?
Yeah, the Seat.
Okay, here we go. Take 2. And go. Go on the timer, go. Reset on the timer, go. Go. Time's going to be a bit out, so I do apologise, but you guys voted for this. I do apologise for that. But to carry on, kind of explain what I was saying before. So there is obviously a couple of cars and things like that. As for, don't worry, we can kind of gloss over what just happened. But yeah. So to mention a couple of things. So there's 6 rallies, like I said. We changed the setup in most of the rallies. Usually in intermediate and expert, that's where you'd more or less be changing car setup. The other thing is as well is that you have a service area between each stage on Novice. On intermediate and expert, it's 2 stages apiece. So you'll do like 2 stages, first 2 stages of the rally. Then what you'll do is you'll turn around and go, right, okay, what do I want to repair or what settings do I want to change? Now, in intermediate and expert, this can actually be harder. Obviously, the difficulty of the AI is harder, of course, but depending on how much damage you do to the car, or depending on how much you've got to repair it. So, for example, on intermediate, the cars do damage. I mean, they damage on Novice as well. On intermediate, they really do gain a lot of damage. The expert, they take some serious damage. And the other thing to mention as well is that you can really, obviously, like I said, you can really damage the car on expert, but you can, you'll get more time taken away from you. So whenever you repair something in the service areas, you'll have some time taken away. So say, for example, you've damaged the steering on a Novice car, it's, say, 5 minutes. Depending on the severity of damage, it's like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes maybe. On intermediate, the same thing will be more like 12 or 15, and on expert, it's more like 20. And you only get 60 minutes to repair the car, so yeah, you have to be careful. And it also adds into the fact that it's not just that gets added in, but it's also the other thing as well. Nice, actually split that time. Cool, good stuff. So obviously it does what it does, but no, it's apart from that, there's not really too much else to mention. I can just give a few hints and things like that. I say hints. So obviously being on the grass isn't always a big help on some of the stages. So for example, you'll see that there's like these little ditches on the inside of corners. These can slow you down. So it's ideal that you want to avoid them as much as possible. They can come in useful for slowing your car down though, which is always a plus. But I don't use them very, very, very often. So there's always that. And we do cut a few corners here and there. There's one in New Zealand Stage 3 and also, I believe, in Australia. I don't know if there's any more. So to give a bit of context about the cars, the 4 cars that we mentioned, some information. So the 2 fastest cars in Novice are the Renault Megane and the Volkswagen Golf. Now, the slowest two cars, as you might expect, are the Seat Ibiza and the Skoda. The Seat Ibiza being the slowest car of the lot. So, you guys picked this, so you get it. You know, you get what you get what you guys donated for. It'll still go under estimate regardless. But believe it or not, the cars do handle slightly differently from one another. So the Golf tends to handle well going into corners. The Renault will tend to slide a lot on its rear end for some reason. The Skoda, due to its short wheelbase, will tend to grasp into corners better. And then the Seat is kind of a bit of a weird mix. So the Seat is, like I said, it has the least amount of power with 230 horsepower. For context, the Skoda has 240, and the Golf and the Renault have 250. Hence the reason why we use the Golf. Now you're probably saying, well, why don't you use the Renault? Now, the Renault, again, just to go back to that point I made with it slides a lot on the rear end, that does not help in a lot of corners. Whereas the Golf can stick to the road pretty damn well. So you always have to be a bit wary of that back end sliding out, and obviously make sure that you don't make a cock up of it. So just be aware. The Seat obviously it suffers on straight line speed compared to the Golf and the Seat. Not that much, but it does suffer a little bit. So the stage times that you can do in the Seat, or the best ones that I managed to get out of Seat, they're about 2 or 3 seconds slower than the Golf. Just to put in perspective of how bad 20 horsepower makes the difference. So we're coming to the end of stage 2, and like I said, the stage is pretty pretty straightforward. There's also one other thing I need to mention. This is a big one. So other than obviously what's going on, as we change to wet grooves there. So other than what's going on at the moment, you'll notice that this game is being played in 16:9. Now there's a reason for this. It's being played in 16:9. So this game, getting this game to run on a modern PC, I used to play this on Windows 7, and then when I upgraded to Windows 10 I found it to still crash, but thankfully, using programs such as DGVoodoo2, Nglide, and some other files as well, so like I think it's Direct Draw 3D or something like that, it's actually able to run in a 16:9 ratio. So you can obviously play this if you wanted to. I've not tried it, but I've seen videos online. You can actually play this game in a full 1080p, thanks to the DGVoodoo wrapper, which is amazing, really. Considering this game released in 1998, obviously, when they made the step up to Colin McRae Rally 2 in 2000, 2 years later, the graphics engine substantially improved, and they also added in dynamic weather. The first and only time it was in the Colin McRae Rally series, until the likes of, I think, Dirt Rally. Or maybe Dirt 3, I could be wrong, but yeah. The other ones do not have dynamic weather, whereas the sequel did to this game. This is also something that I want to mention about speedrunners as well. So, as basic as this is for a speedrunning game, I mean, it's point A to point B, that's what a rally stage is. In case, for those that don't know or aren't aware of what rallying is. So basically, it's point A to point B against the clock, against the fastest competitors in the world. Now, modern rallying, I'm not really up to scratch too much with it, but it still runs today, and there's around, I think, in terms of real life stages, I think it's something like 26 stages or something. But at one point, it used to be like 30 odd stages, or in the late 20s. I'm not sure. It was quite a lot, quite a distance. I think they cover about a third of an F1 distance. But imagine, rather than going around a racetrack for 2 hours like an F1 car does, you're going over some of the roughest terrain known to man in a 300 horsepower car. It used to be 500-ish, 450, 500 when the Group B era was a thing. But I think they've dumbed it down. I think it's now like 300-ish, maybe 350, I could be wrong. But apparently the cars, despite how much less power they have compared to the Group B era, as we just took a sneaky little shortcut there, despite them having less power, they're actually a bit quicker than the Group B, which is surprising. So you never know. But yeah, like I said, for the most part, I don't believe there's any mods or anything for this game, but like I said, to get it to run on Windows 10, you would need the DG Voodoo wrapper and also, well, the DG Voodoo wrapper and also the Englide stuff. Also, that is New Zealand done. So now we move on to Greece. We're going to switch to good acceleration. We're going to jump right into it. Also, one other thing, the graphics stuff. So in the main menu, you may have, if you're quite fast enough to notice it, you'll notice that the graphics for the cars, the way the cars look in the windows, are very strange. This is because this is what the DG Voodoo and Englide does when they try to implement, you know, like DirectX and all that sort of stuff, implement the wrappers. So they do mess up the menu graphics, but the game runs flawlessly. And there is an option to turn VSync on and off for this game. There's a reason why I keep it on though. So I used to play this with VSync off, and obviously on a modern PC, so the maximum frame rate you can get for this game with VSync turned off, it's capped at 91 frames per second. But you know what you're going to say, bloody hell, that's nothing, is it? No, not really, compared to what some games could run at. But, yeah, so you can play the game at 91 FPS, and... okay, right, so why don't I play it on 91 FPS? Why am I playing at 25? Well, when you play it at 91, because the frame rate is... yeah, because the frame rate is unlocked, it actually messes up the physics a little bit. And when I say physics, I mean it causes the camera to twitch a bit and just have a bit of a weird moment. So, like, when you're driving on some of the stage, like now, the camera, you can see the camera is perfectly following the car, as it should. This is exactly what the camera should be doing. However, when the camera has a twitch moment, the camera looks like it's looking down, like as in, you know, like a Micro Machine sort of thing. If you're playing a game, Micro Machines. So, yeah, playing it on this actually allows the game to work as intended. Speaking of Micro Machines, there is actually a cheat that you can implement. I don't know if it's available in the PC version, but in the PS1 version there's actually a cheat you can enable, and it allows the cars to be shrunk down to size. Like, they're shrunk down to Micro Machine size, and it's also got a bird's eye view as one of the cameras. So that's pretty cool. The cars sound funny because it's like a car that usually has a lot of grunt to it. Imagine that, but in a mini version, it sounds very funny. You know, like high-pitched version sort of thing. It's very, very entertaining. The PC and PlayStation 1 versions, as much as they don't really differ too much in terms of content, you know, so all the cars that are in the PS1 version are in here, the stages are the same, etc. There's not really much difference. However, there is something that's worth mentioning. So, in the PC version, there's 4 bonus tracks and 2 bonus cars. The 2 bonus cars, one of them is the Toyota Celica GT4, I believe it is, and that was from 1994? Or 93 maybe? I could be wrong. Might be later in the 90s, but 1990 something, I'm sure it was like 93 or 94. Anyway, so that's one of the bonus cars you can unlock. And the other one is called the Millennium 4 Rally, which is seen as like a concept car. It's kind of weird hard to explain. It's very fast, but it's like a weird prototype rally car. I don't know where it comes in, where it fits into the game, but there you go. There's, you know, cheat codes for them. You can drive them in any of the stages. The 4 bonus stages I mentioned, now these are special stages that can only be unlocked on the PC version via cheat codes. They won't work on PS1, and apparently the PS1 never had bonus stages, as in these extra stages. So if you play the PC, you get a few extra stages, which is pretty damn good. So the 4 stages, one is like a quarry level. So it looks like something out the film WALL-E, if you've ever seen that. Similar to that sort of thing, you know, like a post-apocalyptic wasteland. One is in like just a general quarry. So one's in, you know, you got your general like say English quarry where you've got all like gravel and stuff like that, or just typical quarry really. So you've got that. Another one is, I forget what it's called, the actual stage, but it's about 10,000 feet in the air, and when you're driving about the stage there's no barriers, or barely any of them, so you can easily fall 10,000 foot off the stage. And there's like aeroplanes flying about and stuff like that, and I mean like they're right close to your car. It's pretty crazy. If you don't like heights, wouldn't recommend playing that stage. It always has me on edge when I play it. And then the other stage is simply what I'm going to call a rip-off of Mario Kart's Rainbow Road, because it pretty much is. It's like a lap of a circuit, although they class it as a stage in the game. And it's all like set in space, and there's all like rainbow colours and stuff, so it always reminds me a little bit of Mario Kart and Rainbow Road, that one. So a nice tap off the wall there, just to make sure I get around the corner fast enough. I keep some speed by doing that. You'll also notice that I haven't really spoke much about the game, I just cracked on with it. That's because the stages really, to be honest, the more you learn the stages, the better you'll get at the game. The thing is with rally games, a lot of them actually kind of follow the similar format, which is just constant practice, practice, practice. And I've had my fair share of practice with this game over the years. It's actually the one run, believe it or not, this is actually one run that I can keep coming back to and never really get bored of it. I like to take breaks, you know, I like taking breaks out of it. Sorry, taking breaks from it. But it's just that one run that I don't know how many runners can say the same thing, but for me this is just one game that I keep going back to, simply because I think this was probably one of the first racing games, or first ever PS1 games I played as a child, and it's one of them games that a lot of people have, you know, games stuck with them from their childhood. This for me is the one that always stuck with me, no matter what. I've still got my PS1 copies. I've still got my PS1 copy. Believe it or not, there's a bit of a funny story with that. So, the PS1 copy I have, so I have the North American version, which by the way is the faster version if you're looking at running this on the PlayStation 1. And I have the European, the PAL version. However, the PAL version has a lot of funny story behind it. So, when I was younger, obviously, I played this game quite a fair bit. However, a mate of mine had this. He had the game, and he had it on PlayStation 1, and I remember saying to him, I was like, oh, do you play this game anymore? And he's like, nah, I don't play it anymore. So I just went, you mind if I borrow it? And he went, yeah, okay. Never give it him back. I've still got it like 16 years later. I know you're going to say, well, you're a bad friend. I actually asked him a few years later when I went, because I moved house, that was the reason why I didn't give it him back mainly. And then when I did go back, I did see him again. I was like, do you want the game back? He's like, nah. Because obviously by that point, obviously the PS2 had been out for a while, and the Xbox 360 and PS3 were on the horizon. Or were very close to being released at the time. So he's just like, nah, you're all good. Also, that is Grease done. Clean sweep. So this is Monte Carlo. Now, Monte Carlo, icy roads, we turn to go acceleration just so we can get a bit more speed and stuff like that. The balanced speed will basically mean you'll lose time. Obviously, driving style and keeping your speed during corners is always one thing. Also, this is the first time you're ever seeing snow. So, this won't be the first time though. This is actually one of 2 times you'll see like snow and that sort of thing. So, anyway. So, this is Monte Carlo, and this is usually the main highlight of the WRC. I think they still run it today, if I'm not mistaken. It's one of the oldest WRC rallies there is, I believe. And yeah, apparently a lot of drivers class it as the one to win, as well as like the rally, Wales Rally GB, or RAC as it used to be called back in the 90s. 80s and 90s I think it was. But yeah, so Monte Carlo is always the rally that everyone wants to win. Now, where does that fit with Colin McRae rally? Well, believe it or not, and as I was saying before, I briefly hinted at this before. I said that depending on what version of the game you play. So, Colin McRae Rally 1 had 3 different versions. Obviously, it had 3 different region versions as well. So you had the 3 different region versions. You had the PAL version, North American, and Japanese. However, the PAL version has 3 different versions. So, I don't know if this is the same for America or Japan. I have not tested this. But in terms of the PAL version, it has 3 different ones. So you've got version 1.1, version 1.2, and version 1.3. If you play the game on the version 1.1, this rally is known as Monte Carlo, whereas if you play it on version 1.3, it's known as Austria. Now, why they decided to rename it is a complete mystery. You're probably like, what about 1.2? I couldn't say, I haven't tested it. But it's very strange as to why they changed the name of this rally from Monte Carlo to Austria. The other bizarre thing as well is the stage names never changed. They kept the same stage names and things like that. But the name of the rally changed. And again, why? I have no clue. I have absolutely no idea. This game as well was also, I think it shouldn't have come as any surprise, but this was the first game in the Colin McRae Rally franchise, obviously, given the name. There was actually a remake supposedly, of this game, although it's more like an awful remake of Colin McRae Rally 2. So it was released back in 2013. This is a game that nobody likes talking about, not even me, but I'll briefly mention it for the sake of things. So it released back in 2013. And it was released on the iOS, I believe the Google Play Store, and eventually got ported over to Steam. Now, believe it or not, this is one of these games. It's one of these games that sells for like 58p or whatever it is, 39p on Steam whenever Steam's having the big summer sale. So you never know. But yeah, there's not really too much to say about it. It's just, for me, for a lot of people, they see it as just a really awful mobile port of the second game, but wouldn't recommend playing that. There is speedruns available for that, but wouldn't recommend it. So, believe it or not, this is actually good timing as well, because the Colin McRae Rally series is still in use today. It's under the Dirt name, or Dirt Rally. It's just say Dirt for the time being, which it is. So obviously the first Dirt game released back in 2007, the sequel Dirt 2 released in 2009, we then got Dirt 3 in 2011 with Dirt Showdown releasing a year later. Dirt Showdown was an interesting one, I would say a funny one then. It was a bit of an oddball, that one, because that involved, it's like Destruction Derby met rallying, it just didn't work. So if you're into like smashing cars to pieces and stuff like that, and fancy giving the Colin McRae series a try, that might be the game for you. Maybe, who knows? Myself, I'm not so keen on it. It's got a very short completion time as well, in my opinion, but like you can play it in a couple of hours. But it is what it is. Then obviously we got like Dirt Rally, I think it was in 2015. Obviously we got the mobile app released in 2013. So it was the mobile app first, then Dirt Rally in 2015, which has been in beta for I think a year or so. Might release in 2015 or 2016, maybe 26. Maybe 2015, wasn't it? Then it was Dirt 4, I think, in 2017. Dirt Rally 2 was last year, or maybe 2018. I can't remember now. And then we've had Dirt 5, which is going to be releasing very soon. So. But each of the games, believe it or not, they all have speedrun.com profiles. Not profiles, sorry. What was I saying? Game can't have a profile? That's bizarre. They all have leaderboards. So IL leaderboards, of course, if anyone wants to show the best of what they've got on an IL stage. But there's also actual speedruns, so like doing the career mode, for example, doing a certain discipline and things like that. There's plenty of choice for the Colin McRae series, I find. Obviously, it should come as no surprise, I am quite a big fan of the series. But yeah, we've recently had a big flock to the Colin McRae Rally franchise as of late, which has been very nice. We've had a couple of guys from the Polish communities and also a few from like Hungary and that sort of thing as well, so it's been very nice. In terms of this game, we've not had too many, but again, this could all change at some point. You never know. Like I said, this game is very basic to get hold of. It's very easy to grasp. It might not seem at first because the game doesn't exactly provide much help. However, if people are interested in running this game, then rather than recommending the Novice Championship and doing this category, I would highly recommend doing something called Rally School % or just Rally School if you want to call it that. So in Rally School, it teaches you how to beat the game as fast as possible. So Rally School % involves you beating 3 levels of the rallying school. I don't know. There's like 3 different levels. There's Novice, Intermediate, and Expert. I've actually done one of this for ESA and a few other categories as well. It's a very quick category and it's definitely a good one for a beginner. Should you be interested in trying to learn how physics work and getting used to the car handling in the wet and in the dry as well. Because believe it or not, Rally School teaches you a lot of things like how to maintain braking distances, how to maintain speed through corners, how to handle the car going around corners, how to use the handbrake, obviously your brakes, you slide into corners, keeping the car in control through understeer and oversteer, driving it through some actual forest stages in the dry, the wet, and at night time. So it does teach you a lot of things. That category, believe it or not, though, has been brought down substantially, thanks to a nice little shortcut, should we say? I'm not going to call it a trick, but a shortcut that you can do. In all of the individual trials, you obviously have, like you can cut corners somewhere or something like that. Yeah, I find the original 2 Colin McRae Rally games are definitely ones to recommend to you guys. The first one, like I said, I think the second one would probably be a bit easier than the first one, personally, even though it's a slightly long game to beat. So for your first run for this, you're probably looking around an hour and 10, an hour and 15. Maybe a bit less than that, depending on what your driving skill is like and how fast you get up to scratch. The second one is more a case of about an hour and 30, an hour 40, I'd say. Also, that is Monte Carlo done. So we're on to Australia. Now, Australia, believe it or not, is actually one of them rallies that you don't need to change anything in the setup. So, literally, you just jump straight into the game. This is actually quite convenient. So, I actually did a bit of testing. This was a while ago. This was when I was like first playing this. Not for the first time when I was like 4, but a couple of years ago when I first started looking at even running this game, because there was no leaderboard for it or anything like that. I was like, I really like this, so why not, create a leaderboard and everything, see if people are interested in running it, and a fair few people have been interested and have done runs of it, which made me very happy. Well, I like the more people you get on the leaderboard. I think this is something that, I don't know if it goes for every single person, but I think a lot of runners may agree in this. That having just an empty leaderboard with just your name on it, you don't feel like you're really under much competition, whereas the more people you get on a leaderboard, the better. That makes sense? I've always found it to be the case. I don't know why, like, for example, when I first started running Colin McRae Rally, there was me and maybe 1 or 2 other people, and now there's about 15 or 20 people that have done runs of it. More so the second one than the first one, but there's still a fair few people compared to a couple of years ago, which I like. It's always nice to see a variety of people running the game. It should be worth noting as well that if you're running the PlayStation or the PC version, there is actually separate leaderboards, only because of the fact that the PC version of the game obviously runs much better in game time, And it also runs much faster in terms of load times as well, as you've seen. Like load times on the PlayStation are, I think, at a push, like I think the fastest speed is like 4 seconds, 5 seconds on North America, and about 6 or 7 on PAL, maybe. But yeah, it's a good few seconds per loading screen. And also, one other thing to note is that when you get to the Intermediate and the Expert Championships, if you decide to do those, on the PlayStation, you can't skip a ceremony that happens. So, say you win the New Zealand Rally on Intermediate or Expert, you get this unique little podium screen that plays, so it shows your car coming onto the podium and everything like that. However, on PlayStation you can't skip this, on PC you can. So that's kind of advantage to running PC on that's an advantage of running PC on Intermediate and Expert. But yeah, I'm pretty sure a lot of people would probably go for PC over PlayStation, but if you prefer to play the console version over the PC, then by all means go for it. Nobody's going to stop you from doing it, so yeah. And like I said before, the North American version is the fastest version on PlayStation 1. Ooh. So I'm going to have a quick breather and crack on with the race. And if there's any messages or any donations or anything special, feel free to go right ahead.
No problems, mate. I was just letting you go ahead because you just were free-flowing really nicely then. At the moment we have no donations, but I would like to thank everyone for getting us to $1,000 so far. This speedrun marathon is in support of Crisis. We are raising money to support Crisis, a charity supporting people out of homelessness for good. They achieve this through education, training and supporting with housing, employment and health. 100% of your donations will be going to support Crisis. I would like to give everyone a big thank you for watching the the United Kingdom Speed Run Gathering. Normally we're a 2-day speed running event held 4 times a year in Glasgow, Scotland. But due to the situation with COVID-19, we're bringing you 3 days of exciting speed runs from the comfort of our own home straight to yours. Coming up, we have Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty, run by Apache Smash and Mayu-chan. There is a bid war incentive there for Save or Kill the Seagulls. A little throwback to our Metroid Save the Animals there. If you would like to change the fate for these seagulls, which currently is heavily in the lead for killing the seagulls, you can put any donations towards that. We would also like to thank ESA for supporting this marathon. Besides providing us with their channel for streaming, they are sharing gear, technical assistance and sponsors. Be sure to check out ESA's next event, Break the Record Live Sonic Events DX Edition, from the 30th of October to the 1st of November.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Okay, so we're in stage 3 at the moment with Australia, which is, like I said before, the 3 stages per rally, so this is the final stage of Australia. You'll notice as well that Australia has gone by fairly quick. This is nothing compared to the monstrosity that is Sweden. Now I do apologise, a lot of people are going to go, oh, Sweden's not that bad. In this game, it's always usually the slowest rally for me, in my opinion anyway. But sometimes slow can be fun, so you never know. Sweden's actually a bit of a reoccurring country. It always seems to keep coming back no matter what Colin McRae rally does. It's not in every single one, that's not to say it's been in every single one, but as far as I remember, it's been in pretty much all of the Colin McRae rally games, from the first one up until 2005, I believe. It wasn't in Dirt, unfortunately, although we got snow stages back for the first time in the Dirt series. I think it was Dirt 3 when they brought snow stages back, because they were in either Finland or was it not? Norway, it was. So, yeah, and eventually, obviously, Dirt Rally brought in with Monte Carlo and all that sort of stuff, so we got icy, snowy stages again. And, yeah, we've had them back ever since. I think potentially it could be back in Dirt 5, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, snow stages seem to be a recurring thing. Obviously, more or less, one series that definitely brings snow stages to the forefront is the WRC series. So, in my opinion, the WRC series has always been a direct rival to Colin McRae Rally, or the Dirt series. Mainly because of the fact that in the early 2000s, the WRC series, so the WRC series that is being released these days is actually another set of WRC games. So you're like, what? I'm very confused by what you just said. So let me just set the idea of, well, say also Sweden, isn't it? On we go. So the WRC series released in, I think, 2001, the first one, and that was WRC 1, WRC 2 Extreme, WRC 3, 4, and WRC Rally Evolved. Now these released on the PlayStation 2, and in my opinion they were the first iteration of WRC games. There was a WRC arcade game released back for the PS1 a couple, I think, like 2 years prior to that. So I suppose you could also class that as part of the first set of the WRC series, and I believe it was Milestone that picked it up eventually, and they've made a whole new set of WRC games since 2010, which is still being run today. If you, like I said, in terms of where Sweden and snow fits into all of that, it's because the WRC games actually follow the rallies from WRC. Dirt doesn't really have a set path. I think with the first Colin McRae Rally, and maybe in the first 2 or even 3, they're all in the same boat. So they're all like, yeah, okay, why don't we just have the rallies that the real life races probably would have done. The thing is though, 2 of the rallies in this game weren't actually in the 1998 calendar, or maybe it was 97 calendar. I believe it was Corsica and Indonesia. So, make of that what you will. I think it was that anyway, but yeah. So I believe them 2 rallies were the ones that were, and I think, well, Indonesia's definitely one. I don't know if it was Corsica, I could be wrong on that one. I'd have to fact check that one. But, yeah, like I said, apart from that though, it doesn't really follow a set pattern. WRC is more a case of, if you want, like, I'm not going to say proper rallying, but if you want like the proper rally calendar sort of thing, then definitely recommend giving that a try. If you want to go even one step further in terms of rallying and even combining other motorsports, and this is where modding comes into play, Assetto Corsa, the simulation racing game, you could, I think there's probably a mod for rallying in there somewhere. I remember R-Factor could do it, the first R-Factor, which again, that's another option. Like, you could get an F1 car and put it on a rally stage, which was always a laugh. Stuff that normally just wouldn't happen. So, as you can see, Sweden is going to take a while. This first stage in particular, it's constant left, right. I wish there was a way to skip some of these corners, but there just isn't. Which, also, going back to car setups from near the start of the run, you may remember me mentioning that there's going to be some setup changes. Well, there is. Sweden has one on stage 2, not stage 1. But the main reason for why there's no change on stage 1 is because, ideally, you want the most acceleration you can get out of the car. So it's already set to max acceleration, meaning we just start stage 1 as, you know, and go from there. The good acceleration, which is stages 2 and 3, which is what we're going to be using, they actually help quite a bit, because there's a bit more straight lines, a few more straights. So we change to good acceleration, here we go. So there's actually a few more straights on this rally, which we're going to go from. So, yeah. Going to need all the speed we can get. So there's obviously quite a few cars in Sweden. It's a very slow-paced run, Sweden, unfortunately. Corsica is always a fun time, because Corsica involves us going very fast around corners, and unlike in Sweden, where your car is constantly sliding, you've got a lot of grip. So we're going to go from the snowy lands of Sweden to the tarmacked roads of Corsica. Also, driving in Sweden, we actually use a special type of tyre. Now, you can actually pick these tyres to drive other rallies if you want to. Don't know why you would, but you know, anyway. So, in Sweden, you drive with something called snow tyres. Now, snow tyres are always used, I believe they have them even in Europe as well in some countries, for standard road cars, but rally cars used... still used to this day, I believe, a special type of tyre which is called spike tyre. Spikes, should we say. They're a snow tyre, so what they do is, because they have the treads, they're able to get grip out of the roads, apart from ice obviously, but they're able to grip the road better. See, if you got like a slick tyre, say for example you have a tarmac tyre, that's great for doing like tarmac roads, because you'll get plenty of grip and, you know, plenty of surface area on the road, meaning the more surface area you get, better speed, more grip, essentially, so you get through a stage faster. In Sweden, the spike tyre is basically the slick of snow. If you tried a tarmac tyre on snow, you just go skating straight off the road and probably into the trees, because you wouldn't be able to stop. Spikes would help you do that. I'm not saying you brake and the car would instantly brake, but you'd have the grip to brake, is what I'm saying. There's actually a bit of a funny story I can tell about this as well, which is near where I live. There's like a downhill bit of road with some speed bumps, and I was going to college one morning. And it was snowing. We had quite a bit of snow up near our house because we live on a hill. And the long story on this one was I went over one of the bumps, and bear in mind, standard road tyres are kind of like slicks. They're not actually slick. They do have grooves in them, but they feel like slicks because you can't stop on snow that well. Unless you're going very slow. And obviously I was like, I need to get to college, Also, for some reason the stage is very dark in the PC version compared to the PS1 version. As I was saying, so I went down this hill and everything with the speed bump. And I hit the speed bump, I put the brakes on, the brakes locked up, and I went sliding down the hill. And you're thinking, uh-oh, that's bad. Oh no, it got worse, or looked worse. Believe me, the outcome wasn't too bad, but... there was a row of cars, so it joined onto another road which had backed up with traffic, and the cars on like to the on the nearest side of the road going to the left, they'd all stopped, but luckily they'd left the gap so that in case any car that was coming down the road wanted to turn right onto this road that I was coming down, if for example they wanted to come down that road, it was like uh-oh sort of thing, yeah. They could the gap's there so they could turn through it. Well, obviously I'm coming down the road, no brakes, because I let the brakes off again and then tried putting the brakes back on. The brakes just locked up again, so I was like, oh god, I'm going to smash into a load of cars and smash up the front of my car. Anyway, luckily I managed to slide it in the direction of the gap in the middle of the cars, which luckily it wasn't too far in front. Like, wasn't too far aside, you know, I was more or less aiming for it anyway, so I didn't have to do too much. So I moved it so it was a bit more in line, and I was definitely going to go through the gap, which I fit through. But then my other worry, before I even got through there, was that I was going to smash into a car on the other side, and luckily the car, I'm guessing they must have seen me through a car window, managed to stop, and I hit the curb, which was a hard curb in front of me, and I was like, oh no, I damaged my car. It was a proper big thud. I did come to a complete stop when I hit it. But luckily the car was fine, and I got to college that day and I was checking underneath the car when I came out of college thinking, you know, it's probably leaking oil or engine oil or even fuel. And there was water leaking out, but it was, luckily I dipped my hand in it just to make sure it wasn't oil or petrol or something. Luckily it was just the ice that melted off the car, so I got very lucky with that. So yeah, funny little story. Lots for doing Sweden. So the cars that are in this category, I've not mentioned this yet, they're from the 1997 or was it 98? I think it was 98. 1998 British Rally Championship. Funnily enough, the full review of that season is on YouTube. So if you are interested in seeing these cars in real life and everything else, then there is a season review where you can watch them. Also, that is Sweden done. Now, like I said, Sweden is always the one you want to get out of the way. On to Corsica. Again, remember what I said before? We have the spike tyres for Sweden, slick tyres for Corsica. Also, looking at my time right now, I think we're going to go underestimate by quite a bit. By that I mean about 3 minutes, so that should hopefully bring us back on schedule a little bit. Yeah.
May I interrupt for 1 second?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
We have a donation in from an anonymous donator for $50, so thank you very much for that generous donation.
Thank you very much. See, how I rate this run from start to finish is New Zealand and Greece are, for me, easy for beginners. Austria and Australia are like, right, okay, now you need to show what you've got, and they're a bit more difficult. Even though the stages can be fast, it's like, right, now you really need to, need to show what you've got. Then you get to Sweden and Corsica. And Sweden and Corsica are more a case of, right, you think you know this car, you think you know your way around it, let's see you prove it. That's pretty much how I think the Novice Championship is broken up. It's not that aggressive, really. The AI isn't really much of a challenge. I've seen people beat this game first time round, and I don't mean like they played racing games before, like they don't play racing games, and they've managed to beat the AI. Because the thing is, you don't have to win every rally to be the champion. However, winning rallies does help and obviously gets you the faster RTA and the in-game time as well. We also have an in-game time splitter, an auto splitter, which measures RTA and in-game time. You may have noticed I haven't really used my brakes much on this stage. That's because I don't need to. Apart from here. So stage 2 is actually a really good stage. It's very fast. It can be anyway. Which is why, now, this is where runners will differ from one another. So, I always change that to good acceleration, or I have done for quite a while. However, you can leave the car on the settings that you've got it on. It doesn't really matter. You will lose time in this stage, but the max acceleration will come in useful for stage 3. So that was close. And if you are thinking of running this game, the fastest gearbox, so you can pick between automatic and manual. Obviously, if you're starting out with this game, definitely pick automatic. I sure as hell did. I used automatic for about 10 or 11 years. Eventually I made the switch over to manual about 8 years ago. Believe it or not, I actually did a series on this a while ago on YouTube, and I think during that I was using manual, and I remember I hadn't been using manual for too long, but it was a fun experience. Obviously I'm quite used to the game now, but yeah, back then it was a case of, it is a bit difficult to get used to. You have to like find the timings of the gears. The easiest advice I can give is, so you'll notice that I might gear up just before it hits that top block. So just as it hits that top block, that's when I hit the gear up. That's usually my reference point for gear changes. Also, if you're brave enough, you can take this with... I use my brakes there, I tab the brakes. If you're brave enough, you can actually use the brakes there. Sorry, if you're brave enough, you can get through there without using the brakes, is what I meant to say. Same with going around that corner. That corner is more difficult in the intermediate and expert cars, and there's a reason for that. Because it is hard. Very hard. Nice. Stage 2 done. And I'm going to repair the car here, put it on max acceleration for this last stage. Just because it's more, well, more useful for this stage. Also, I should just mention that time will be as soon as I cross the finish line. So you've got about 2.5 minutes yet, but it'll be when I cross the finish line. Overall, I'm quite impressed with how this run's gone, personally, because I did practice with the Seat last week, or during this week, and I think it was like nearly a 53, so this is looking more like a 52, and I'm very happy about that, if it is. I think it was a 52, actually, but this one will be a better 52, what I mean. Yeah, if you have enjoyed this run, guys, we do have a Colin McRae Rally Discord. You can find it on all of the Colin McRae Rally and I believe most of the dirt pages, either in the forums or just on the pages. I believe there's also one on the Colin McRae Rally series as well. As a community, we have grown quite a bit over the last few years. Sorry, last few years, like last 2 years. And the other thing to mention as well is that we do actually run our own speedrunning marathon event. However, it's not based on rallying. It's more. It was at the start, but it's more a case of based on racing games and stuff like that. So if you are interested, then there'll be announcements for that in due time. And in terms of myself, if you like the run that you've seen today and everything like that, feel free to head over to my Twitch channel. Yeah, I do quite a few racing games and stuff like that. Recently I've been playing House of the Dead, doing speedruns of them games and stuff like that. However, racing is more my niche, as a lot of my viewers will tell you. So if you like what you see, then yeah, feel free to head over. So yeah, time will be when I get to the end of this stage. Also, I didn't mean to go like that. I went a bit too wide on that corner then. Just got 2 splits to go. This last stage is actually the ultimate test, I would say. I think a lot of us actually agreed on this the other day in my chat. Get ready on time, and time! Nice. And that's it. That is the Novice Championship. Yeah, 52.11, pretty good, to be honest. Not the best one, because the best one I've done it is in a Golf. The VW Golf is the fastest car. But I will take that. 52.11 in the Seat's pretty impressive for me. I find, anyway. Like I said, there is some intermediate and expert cars that are a bit more powerful, as you can see. But yeah, that is the run. I'm going to pass it back over to the UKSG guys. As always, thanks again to UKSG for having me. Hope you guys enjoyed the run. Feel free to check out my Twitch channel if you did. And that sort of thing. And yeah, have a good rest of the marathon. Thank you very much.